Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor Podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. Today I want to share with you an important topic. On one of our previous podcasts, I reviewed 5 of the main symptoms that we see with Hashimoto's disease, and really with suboptimal thyroid hormone physiology. So it's not just with Hashimoto's, though most people that have thyroid dysfunction, especially low thyroid issues, they have those symptoms because of Hashimoto's, because of an autoimmune process against the thyroid gland that creates a number of problems for your overall hormonal physiology, thyroid physiology, and really just systemic function. But I covered probably the 5 most common symptoms, and today I'd like to go into one of those symptoms in a bit more detail and expand upon it. So one of the symptoms that we discussed, again, in one of our previous podcasts, was that, and I would say this is probably the most common symptom that is reported whenever I see someone or when someone has a thyroid-related issue, and this is fatigue. Now, fatigue, in particular, 2 different types of fatigue. There's mental fatigue, and then there's physical fatigue. Now, the mental fatigue is just where you don't have mental endurance. And there's a few different things that can be occurring here. It can be endurance of your focus, your inability to maybe find words, to put thoughts together. It's commonly referred to as, I would say a lay term or a slang term as brain fog. And it's not a bad way to describe it, to convey some of the challenges that you're having. It's very difficult to think clearly, and this is a huge problem. I mean, I see this. I work with a lot of people, and I see, unfortunately, quite frequently, where it has caused the level of brain fog or of inability to focus and think has caused people to change their jobs or lose their jobs. And this is just speaks to the magnitude of the problem. And really, what we're looking at when you have these symptoms, there are a few different things that can contribute to it. One of the main things when we're looking at thyroid hormone physiology and problems with optimal thyroid hormone physiology is that you may not be getting adequate cellular stimulation, especially of the neurons, and the neurons are the nerve cells that make up your brain. You might not be getting adequate stimulation of those cells by your thyroid hormone. And that the reason that's really important is because every single cell in the body, no matter if it's the nerve cells that make up your brain, which we call neurons, or the cells of your liver, or the cells of your skin, or the cells of your muscles or your digestive tract, they all require thyroid hormone to stimulate the cell so that it can take glucose, which is blood sugar, and oxygen, and produce energy. And if the cells cannot produce energy, then you will have dysfunction. And when the neurons cannot produce, which are your nerve cells again, and primarily we're talking about the neurons. You have neurons throughout the body, but you have obviously a lot of neurons in the brain. You cannot have normal cellular physiology. And if you can't have normal cellular physiology, you're going to have a lot of symptoms. Brain fog is absolutely one of those. Now, a lot of other things contribute, and I really don't like to talk about things in pure isolation, like brain fog and thyroid hormone stimulation alone being, a major factor. It is a major factor, but there are so many other things that you have to look at when someone's complaining of brain fog. You have to look at, you've really got to look at blood sugar very, very closely. Excuse me. Because it tends to be a major problem. And really, the things that I just mentioned, right? So normal neuron function is dependent upon some very, very basic things. Blood sugar, oxygen delivery, and thyroid hormone physiological stimulation, right? So you have to have the stimulatory response. And a lot of things can interfere and break down those three things. So it's really, those are your fuel is your glucose, your blood sugar, and your oxygen. And the thyroid hormone is required to spark that biochemical process so that you can produce energy. So a lot of things can interfere with your thyroid hormone sensitivity or thyroid hormone quantities. The production of thyroid hormone, the transportation of thyroid hormone, the sensitivity of your body to thyroid hormone, and ultimately the elimination and detoxification. A lot of things can interfere with the thyroid hormone. All those things that I just mentioned, those different categories, there are a number of things that can affect your thyroid hormone and decrease the stimulation of the cell. Now, there are also a lot of things that can affect oxygen delivery of the cell, right? So if there's any type of anemia where, basically anemia is where you cannot carry oxygen efficiently, the red blood cells cannot carry oxygen efficiently throughout the body. If you can't get oxygen to the brain, do you think there's going to be a problem with focus and mental clarity? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. So many different things come into play here. And then, the last thing, again, blood sugar, right? So you have to have fuel, you have to have that thyroid hormone to spark the biochemical process so that you can produce energy. So you've got to look at these basics, right? Does the person, do you have problems? Are you anemic? If you're anemic, then you've got to figure out why you're anemic, right? Because that can create problems with fuel delivery to the cells of the brain, and then therefore you're going to have problems with brain fog. Do you have blood sugar, adequate blood sugar stimulation, right? If you don't have adequate not stimulation, but adequate supply, steady supply of glucose to the neurons, to the nerve cells, then you're not going to be able to produce energy. So, are there huge gaps in between your meals? I mean, when I'm working with people, there are a few things that have to occur. I mean, that I know I can't help you if you can't do it, right? If you can't eat frequently enough, and for most people, that's not a problem, but sometimes life gets in the way of people, making change that they need to make. And so sometimes people will tell me, they have all these problems, but they can't make the changes required. Like, I have people eat 3 meals a day and 3 snacks a day at a minimum. You can't have low blood sugar, especially in the early phases when we're trying to help you stabilize and improve your health and your physiology. You've got to have stable blood sugar. It means you've got to eat frequently enough, and you've got to eat the right foods. So these are like basics, right? These are things that have to occur for normal chemistry to occur. If you can't make the changes that are required, that you need to make in order to have stable blood sugar and to be healthy, then you have to really, this is what it comes down to sometimes, because I'm looking at the whole person. Where you might have to make some changes in your lifestyle, or maybe your job, to accommodate the changes that need to occur so that you can have, a healthy body, adequate energy levels, and be the best you. I mean, you deserve that. You deserve that. And if your lifestyle and the things that you think you have to do are interfering with your ability to be healthy, then you might want to assess that, because is that in your best interest? Is that in the best interest of the people that you care about and that your future? I mean, it's obvious that, it's a rhetorical question. But I just I wanted to, especially as it relates to fatigue, you've got to think about energy production, at the level of the cell. Can the cell produce energy? And it really comes down to the primary things that I just mentioned, the 3 ingredients for energy production: oxygen, glucose, thyroid hormone, physiological stimulation, right? Not just quantity. It's the stimulation. And then there's all kinds of things that can disrupt that, right? Inflammatory processes, elevated cortisol, lots of different things can interfere and break that process down. So those are all things we want to consider, and that we want to, take, identify, figure out what's going on, right? Do the best that we can to determine what's driving those problems, and then beyond that, put together a plan to try and help. So I hope this helps you guys to better understand. I think one of the most common problems that we see, which is energy production, right? And it's fatigue. Fatigue is the number one complaint of people that have thyroid-related symptoms. Is fatigue, and it's mental fatigue, and brain fog is very common, and that tends to kind of overshadow physical fatigue in a lot of cases, because quite frankly, the mental fatigue comes first, and if the problems that are driving the mental fatigue are allowed to persist for a long period of time, then physical fatigue tends to follow. At least that's my clinical observation, that the physical fatigue is something that is usually secondary. It comes after the mental fatigue, and I think it's just our brains are very sensitive. They're very sensitive to fluctuations in oxygen delivery, blood sugar delivery, and thyroid hormone physiological stimulation. So all things that we've got to consider, and that I really wanted to share with you. In some of our forthcoming podcasts, I'm going to discuss some of the other problems and go into a little bit more detail on what tends to drive them, and try to give you all some ideas on how to address these issues. As always, starting with the foundations, the basic, right? I've talked a lot about diet here. Those are all places that you can start, all places that you should start. You should start with the basics. And if you want to really dig and try to find out your unique drivers and the mix of drivers, then you might want to get some testing done. If you need some assistance with that, just reach out to us and we'll do our best to help you. Starting and making dietary changes is really critical for most people. And one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to explore, eating a whole foods diet. If you need some help and assistance with, things that you want to try on your own, you can go to thyroidprogram.com, which is one of our, it's a website where we put together some training for you on things that you can do to help yourself there. And you can also learn about our transformation program, which is specifically designed for people that have thyroid dysfunction. And we walk you through dietary approaches and lifestyle changes, and also supplementation that we use and that we've seen work with people clinically. So if you have any questions or you need anything, please don't hesitate, to reach out to us. We would love to help you to the best of our ability to improve your quality of life. Also, it's my mission to help teach you, to help empower you to be your own advocate and to be a better partner with your healthcare providers, because we've all got to work as a team if we're going to really make a difference here. We can't be fighting with each other and butting heads. We've really got to try to work together to have the best opportunity to change this world for the better. And it's my mission, as always, my mission. Our goal is to help you change your life. If we can help you, I know it'll help your family. That'll make a difference in your community, and ultimately we'll change the world just one person at a time. So I appreciate you for hanging out. Thanks for joining me today. I hope it's been helpful, and I hope it helps to improve your quality of life. But if you need anything, please let us know, and I'll look forward to talking to you on the next episode. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.